Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the reconnaissance ship, Defiant, and watched the stars drift past the main screen. The ship hummed quietly around him as it moved through space on what should have been a simple patrol mission along the Outer Rim territories. Lisa Ward, his pilot, looked up from her controls and stretched her arms above her head. They had been traveling for 3 days now, and nothing interesting had happened. The journey was supposed to take them past several mining colonies and trading posts to check for any signs of trouble. Tony Blake, the ship's engineer, crawled out from under a control panel near the back of the bridge. His uniform was dirty, and he wiped grease from his hands with a cloth. The Defiant was an older ship, and something always needed fixing. Emmy Stone sat at the communications station monitoring radio signals from nearby systems. She wore headphones and occasionally adjusted dials on her control board. Most of the chatter was routine traffic between merchant ships and colony administrators. Jake stretched and looked at the mission briefing on his small screen again. They were supposed to visit the mining colony on Kepler 442b, and then return to Earth with a status report. It was the kind of boring assignment that kept crews busy, but rarely produced anything worth reporting. The Defiant shook slightly as Lisa made a course correction toward the Kepler system. Jake could see the distant star growing brighter on the main screen. In a few hours they would reach the mining colony and could begin their inspection. Emmy suddenly sat up straight and pulled off her headphones. She turned to face Jake with a worried expression on her face. "Captain, I am picking up distress signals from the Kepler colony." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "What kind of distress signals?" Amy put the signals through the main speakers so everyone could hear. A man's voice crackled through the static. "This is Administrator Peterson at Kepler. For 42B mining facility, we are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack by unknown alien vessels. Request immediate assistance." The message repeated several times before cutting to static. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Unknown alien vessels could mean pirates, but it might also mean something much worse. The Outer Rim had been quiet for months, but rumors had been spreading about increased alien activity in nearby sectors. Lisa turned from her pilot station. "Should I increase speed to the colony?" Captain Jake nodded. "Do it, but keep our sensors on maximum range. I want to know what we are flying into before we get there." The Defiant picked up speed, and the star ahead grew brighter. Tony returned to his engineering station and began running diagnostics on all ship systems. If they were heading into trouble, he wanted everything working perfect. Liami continued monitoring communications, but the distress signal had stopped broadcasting. She tried to contact the colony directly, but received no response. The silence was more worrying than the original distressed callous. They approached the Kepler system. Jake ordered Lisa to drop out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the star system. They would approach the mining colony carefully, using only normal space engines. The main screen filled with the image of Kepler 44 to be a brown and gray planet, with several large mining installations visible on its surface. But Jake immediately saw that something was very wrong. 50 massive alien ships surrounded the planet in a perfect formation. The vessels were unlike anything Jake had ever seen before. They were long and dark, with strange curved designs that seemed to bend light around them. Each ship was easily 3 times the size of the Stared at the screen. Those are Vorthok ships. Captain Jake felt ice form in his stomach. The Vorthok Empire was one of the most feared alien civilizations in known space. They were technologically advanced and completely ruthless in their military operations. Human colonies that encountered Vorthok fleets rarely survived. To tell about it, Tammy was frantically scanning communications frequencies. "Captain, I am detecting massive energy signatures from those ships. Their weapons are charged and ready to fire." Tony looked up from his engineering console. "Captain, our ship cannot fight those vessels. We have light defensive weapons, but nothing that could damage ships that size." Eek studied the formation of enemy ships and realized the terrible truth. This was not a random attack on the mining colony. This was a carefully planned trap. The distress signal had been bait designed to lure human ships into Vorthok territory on the main screen. Jake could see smaller Vorthok fighter craft moving. Between the larger ships like deadly insects, the enemy had been waiting for them to arrive. Lisa checked her navigation controls. Captain, I can plot a course back to the edge of the system and jump to faster than light travel, but those fighters are already moving toward. Jake watched the enemy fighters accelerate toward their position. The Vorthok ships moved with frightening speed and coordination. Each fighter was probably more heavily armed than the entire Defiant. I looked at her. Communications equipment, Captain. I am detecting some kind of energy field being broadcast by the enemy fleet. It looks like a neural disruptor. Tony shook his head. That is bad news. Captain, neural disruptors can interfere with our computer systems and make it difficult to jump to faster than light travel. Jake realized they had only minutes before the Vorthok fighters reached their position. The enemy had planned this trap perfectly. The distress signal had drawn them in, and now neural disruptors would prevent their escape. The largest Vorthok ship in the formation was clearly the flagship. It was twice the size of the other vessels and covered in weapon arrays that could destroy the Defiant with a single blast. Jake knew that ship contained the enemy commander who had planned this ambush. Lisa worked frantically at her controls, trying to plot an escape course, but the neural disruptor field was already affecting their navigation systems. The computer kept displaying error messages and refusing to calculate faster than light coordinates. Sammy reported that communications with Earth were being jammed by the enemy fleet. They were completely cut off from any possibility of calling for help or warning other human ships about the trap. Tony crawled back under his control panel, trying to reroute power around systems that were being affected by the neural disruptors. But the Vorthok technology was too advanced, and their interference was spreading through the ships. Computer network. Jake watched the enemy fighters getting closer on the main screen. In less than 2 minutes, they would be within weapons range. The Defiant had no chance against so many enemy vessels, but Jake refused to surrender without trying to escape. He looked around the bridge at his crew. Lisa was still working on navigation while Amy tried to break through the communications jamming. Tony was doing everything possible to keep their systems running under the neural disruptor attack. Knew he had to make a decision quickly. The Vorthok fighters were almost within weapons range, and their main fleet was slowly moving to surround the Defiant. Completely his hands shook as he reached toward the control panel looking for anything that might help them escape the trap. The enemy had planned everything perfectly, but maybe there was still some way to get his crew to safety. The Vorthok ships filled the main screen now, and Jake could see weapon ports opening on the nearest fighters. In seconds they would open fire and the mission would be over. Jake pressed what he desperately hoped was the emergency retreat system. Jake pressed the control he thought would activate their emergency retreat system, but instead of the familiar hum of faster-than-light engines charging up, something completely different happened. Strange alien device that Tony had installed months earlier suddenly came to life. The device had been salvaged from a derelict alien ship they had found drifting in deep space. Tony had called it some kind of universal translation system, but they had never fully tested what it could do. The device began broadcasting a signal across all frequencies. Amy watched in amazement as her communication equipment lit up with activity. The signal was unlike anything she had ever seen before. It seemed to penetrate the neural disruptor field that the Vorthok had been using to jam their systems on the main screen. The approaching Vorthok fighters suddenly stopped moving toward the Defiant. They hung motionless in space, as if waiting for something. Lisa checked her navigation sensors and confirmed that all 50 enemy ships had stopped their advance. Tony crawled out from under his control panel and stared at the readings on his engineering station. Captain, that old alien device is broadcasting some kind of command signal. I think it is communicating directly with the Vorthok. Tommy put her headphones back on and listened to the alien transmissions flooding the communication channels. Captain, the Vorthok ships are responding to our signal. They seem to be acknowledging some kind of authority. Command. Jake stared at the main screen, where the massive enemy fleet remained perfectly still. The fighters that had been seconds away from attacking them were now floating silently in formation. None of the Vorthok ships were moving or charging their weapons. Lisa ran a full sensor sweep of the enemy fleet. Captain, All Vorthok vessels have powered down their weapon systems, their fighters are returning to their ships, and their main fleet is assuming a standby formation. Jake could not believe what he was seeing. The trap that should have destroyed them had somehow been turned around. The Vorthok fleet that had been preparing to attack was now behaving as if it was under their command. Dami continued monitoring the alien communications. Captain, I am receiving what looks like status reports from all 50 Vorthok ships. They are transmitting their positions, weapon status, and crew complements directly to Ustoni. Studied the ancient alien device that was still broadcasting its mysterious signal. Captain, this device must be some kind of Vorthok military equipment. I think when you activated it, the system recognized it as a legitimate command. Override. Jake looked around his bridge at the 3 crew members, who were as shocked as he was. They had been facing certain death just minutes before, and now they seemed to have accidentally taken control of the entire enemy fleet. The main screen, the largest Vorthok ship, the one Jake had identified as the flagship, was moving slowly toward their position, but instead of approaching to attack, it seemed to be taking up a protective formation around the Defiant. Amy reported that she was receiving a direct communication from the Vorthok flagship. Captain, the enemy commander is requesting orders. She seems to be waiting for instructions from whoever is controlling the command. Override signal. Jake realized that the Vorthok military must operate on some kind of neural link system that made their warriors obey certain types of command signals without question. When he had accidentally activated the ancient device, it had somehow convinced the entire enemy fleet that he was their commanding officer. Lisa checked her navigation systems and found that the neural disruptor field had been completely shut down. They could now jump to faster than light travel whenever they wanted. The way was clear for them to escape back to human space, but Amy was monitoring more communications from the Vorthok fleet. Captain, I am detecting references to other human colonies under attack. There are at least 3 more Vorthok fleets operating in this sector, and they are all targeting human settlements. Jake felt the weight of an impossible decision settling on his shoulders. They could escape right now and return to Earth to report what had happened, but if they left, the other Vorthok fleets would continue attacking human colonies, and thousands of people would die. Tony was studying the readings from the ancient command device. Captain, this signal is not going to last forever. The device is already showing signs of overheating. I estimate we have maybe 72 hours before it burns out completely. Jake looked at the main screen where 50 of the most advanced warships in known space waited for his orders. The Vorthok fleet under his accidental command was more powerful than any human military force. He could potentially use them to defend the other colonies under attack. Lisa turned from her pilot station. Captain, what are your orders? Do we retreat to Earth, or do we try to help the other human settlements? Sammy was still monitoring Vorthok communications. The enemy fleets attacking the other colonies are expecting regular reports from this fleet. If we do nothing, they will become suspicious and might change their attack plans. Jake knew that trying to command an alien fleet with technology he did not understand was incredibly dangerous, but the thought of abandoning other human colonies to Vorthok attacks made him feel sick. He had to try to use this accident to save lives. Tony warned him again that the command device was already showing stress fractures from the power it was broadcasting. Captain, if we are going to do something, we need to decide quickly. This equipment will not last much longer. Jake made his decision. They would stay and try to use the Vorthok fleet to protect other human colonies. It was probably suicide, but it was better than running away while people died. He activated the communication system to send orders to the Vorthok flagship. Amy, I need you to help me figure out how to talk to these aliens. We are going to pretend I am their new fleet. Commander Amy began working with the translation protocols built into the ancient device. Captain, the system seems to have basic Vorthok military terminology programmed into it. I think I can help you communicate simple orders on the main screen. The Vorthok flagship continued to wait patiently for instructions. Jake could see smaller ships moving around the fleet in precise formations. The aliens were clearly experienced military professionals who followed orders without questions, continued monitoring the command device, and warned that it was consuming enormous amounts of power. Captain, this equipment was not designed to control such a large fleet. The overload is getting worse every minute. Jake opened a communication channel to the Vorthok flagship and tried to sound like he knew what he was doing. This is Fleet Commander Morrison. To all Vorthok vessels, stand down from attacks on human colonies and prepare to receive new tactical instructions. The response was immediate. Amy reported that all 50 ships acknowledged the order and were requesting specific instructions. Jake realized that he was now responsible for commanding the most powerful military force he had ever seen. The Vorthok fleet waited in perfect formation around the Defiant as Jake tried to figure out how to use his accidental authority to save human lives. The ancient device continued broadcasting its command signal, but Tony warned that time was running out. Jake looked at his crew and knew they were all thinking the same thing. They were a small reconnaissance ship with 4 people trying to command 50 alien warships. It should have been impossible, but somehow it was working. The question now was whether they could keep the deception going long enough to make a difference. Jake stared at the tactical display, showing the positions of all 50 Vorthok warships now under his accidental command. The ancient device continued broadcasting its command signal, but he could see warning lights indicating it was overheating. Rapidly, Amy worked frantically with the translation systems, trying to understand the flood of reports coming from the alien fleet. Captain, the Vorthok ships are sending detailed intelligence about their military operations. They have attack plans for 12 human colonies. Lisa studied the navigation data being transmitted by the enemy ships. Captain, according to their tactical information, there are 3 other Vorthok fleets currently attacking human settlements. We could reach 2 of those battle sites within 18 hours. Tony crawled back under his engineering panel to monitor the command device more closely. Captain, the power consumption is getting critical. This equipment might last 72 hours, but it could also burn out in the next few minutes. Jake realized he was facing the most important decision of his life. He could order the Vorthok fleet to retreat and then escape back to human space with his crew safe. But thousands of people would die in the other attacks. While he ran away to save himself, the communication system chimed, and Amy reported that the Vorthok flagship was requesting direct contact. Captain, their fleet commander wants to speak with you personally. She is asking for confirmation of the new mission parameters. Jake took a deep breath and opened the communication channel. This is Fleet Commander Morrison. Transmit your current tactical status and prepare to receive new orders immediately. A harsh alien voice responded through the speakers. Fleet Commander, this is ship leader Zek Thera, aboard the Dominion Spear. We await your instructions regarding the human colony operations. Jake looked at Amy, who was working with the translation system to help him understand Vorthok military protocols. Captain, I think you need to give them specific orders about the other attacks, or they will become suspiciously senseless. Was studying the tactical information from the alien fleet. Captain, the Vorthok have detailed maps of human space and intelligence about our military capabilities. They know exactly where our weakest colonies are located. Jake made his decision. All Vorthok fleets will immediately cease attacks on human colonies and report their positions for new tactical assignments. Any fleet that continues unauthorized attacks will be considered in violation of command authority. Amy monitored the communications as Jake's orders were transmitted across Vorthok networks. Captain, I am detecting responses from the other enemy fleets. They are acknowledging the ceasefire order and requesting new instructions. Tone reported that the command device was holding steady for now, but the power drain was enormous. Captain, we are broadcasting command signals across multiple star systems. The equipment was never designed for this kind of range. Jake opened another communication channel to the Vorthok flagship ship leader, Zek Thora. I need complete intelligence reports on all current Vorthok military operations in this sector. Transmit all tactical data. Immediately the response came quickly. Fleet Commander, we are transmitting our complete operational database. Your orders contradict previous mission parameters. Are you implementing a new strategic directive? Jake realized he was walking into dangerous territory. The real Vorthok commanders would expect him to know about their original mission plans. Amy, I need help understanding what their original orders were. Me studied the intelligence data flowing from the alien ships. Captain, the Vorthok were ordered to capture human colonies, not destroy them. They want to take prisoners and study our technology. Their original mission was some kind of research operation. Jake felt a chill as he realized the implications. The Vorthok were not just randomly attacking human settlements, they were conducting organized research on human capabilities, which meant they were probably planning a much larger invasion. Lisa checked the navigation systems. Captain, the nearest Vorthok fleet is attacking the colony on Rigel 7. They have already captured the main settlement and are holding approximately 8,000 human prisoners. Jake knew he had to act quickly. The longer he waited, the more humans would be captured or killed by other Vorthok fleets. He opened the communication channel again. All Vorthok fleets will immediately release human prisoners and withdraw to defensive positions. Nami reported that his orders were being transmitted, but she was detecting some confusion in the responses. Captain, some of the other fleet commanders are questioning the new orders. They want confirmation directly from Vorthok. High Command. Tony looked up from his engineering station with a worried expression. Captain, the command device is definitely overheating. I can see stress fractures forming in the main components. We do not have much time left. Jake realized he was pushing his luck, but he could not abandon the human prisoner. Ship leader, Sekthera, you will take this fleet to assist in prisoner release operations at Rigel 7. Prepare for immediate departure. There was a long pause before the Vorthok commander responded. Fleet commander, this action will expose our tactical position to human military forces. Are you certain this is the correct strategic choice? Jake could hear the suspicion in the alien voice, but he had committed to this course of action. Now we will implement immediate humanitarian protocols for all captured humans. Prepare your fleet for monitored the communications as the Vorthok fleet began moving into formation. Captain, ship leader Sekthera is complying with your orders, but I am detecting private communications between the alien ships. They may be starting to suspect something. Lisa activated the navigation systems. Captain, the Vorthok fleet is ready to jump to faster than light travel. Should I plot a course to follow them to Rigel 7? Jake nodded, but he knew they were taking an enormous risk. If the Vorthok realized they were being commanded by humans, the entire fleet would turn against the Defiant instantly. Tony reported that the command device was showing critical stress indicators. Captain, I estimate we have maybe 24 hours before complete system failure. After that, we will have no control over the alien fleet. Jake watched on the main screen as 50 Vorthok warships arranged themselves in attack formation around his small reconnaissance vessel. The sight was both terrifying and incredible. He was commanding more firepower than most human admirals ever. Sami continued, monitoring alien communications. Captain, I am detecting transmissions to Vorthok. High Command, some of the fleet commanders are requesting verification of the new mission parameters. Jake realized that time was running out. The longer this deception continued, the more likely it was that Vorthok High Command would discover what was really happening. But he could not abandon thousands of human prisoners to save himself. Lisa engaged the faster-than-light engines, and the combined human and Vorthok fleet jumped toward Rigel 7. Jake stared at the tactical display and wondered if he was about to save thousands of lives or lead his crew into certain death. Of fleet moved through space with frightening efficiency. Jake could see why these aliens were so feared throughout the galaxy. Their ships were faster and more advanced than anything humanity possessed. Tony warned him again that the command device was failing rapidly. Captain, when this equipment burns out, the Vorthok will realize they have been tricked. We need an escape plan. Jack looked around his bridge at Lisa, Amy, and Tony, who had followed him into this impossible situation. They deserved better than to die because of his desperate decision, but it was too late to turn back now. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at Rigel 7, where another Vorthok attack force was holding human prisoners. Jake knew the next few hours would determine whether his accidental command authority could save lives or would get everyone killed. The combined fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at Rigel 7, and Jake immediately saw the scope of the disaster below. The human colony was burning, and 3 Vorthok ships were holding position over the main settlement Amy monitored. Communications between the fleet's captain, the local Vorthok commander, is confused about why we are here. Ship leader Tal Nox is requesting clarification of mission parameters. Jake opened the communication channel. This is Fleet Commander Morrison. Ship leader Tal Nox, you will immediately release all human prisoners and prepare to withdraw from this system. The response was sharp and suspicious. Fleet Commander, these orders contradict our primary mission directive. I am transmitting a verification request to High Command. Vorthon Tony looked up from his engineering station with alarm. Captain, that is bad news. If Vorthok High Command starts investigating these orders, they will discover that our command signal is not authentically so as studying the tactical situation. Captain, the local Vorthok fleet has already loaded approximately 2,000 human prisoners onto their ships. If they jump to faster-than-light travel before we can stop them, those people will disappear forever. Jake realized he was running out of time and options. The command device was failing, and now Vorthok High Command was starting to investigate his orders. But he could not let 2,000 humans be taken as prisoners. Ship leader Tal Nox, this is a direct command. Release the prisoners immediately and stand down your weapons. This is not a request. Reported that communications were becoming increasingly hostile. Captain, ship leader Tal Nox is demanding authentication codes that we do not have. Several ships in his fleet are powering up their weapons. Jake looked at the main screen, where the 3 local Vorthok ships were clearly preparing for combat. Their weapon systems were charging, and they had moved into an aggressive formation around the human colony. Tony warned that the ancient command device was showing critical failure indicators. Captain, I am reading massive power fluctuations. The system could shut down completely at any moment. Jake made a desperate decision. Ship leader Zekthera, order your fleet to disable the local Vorthok ships and secure the release of all human prisoners. Use minimum force but complete the mission. There was a pause before Zekthara responded. Fleet Commander, this action will constitute an attack on fellow Vorthok forces. Are you ordering me to fire on our own ships? Jake felt sweat forming on his forehead, but he could not back down now. That is a direct order. Ship leader, execute immediately. Emmy watched her communications equipment with growing alarm. Captain, I am detecting multiple transmissions to Vorthok High Command. The local commanders are reporting that we are acting against standard protocols on the main screen. Jake watched as his 50-ship fleet moved toward the 3 local Vorthok vessels. The local ships immediately began broadcasting distress signals and demanding explanations for the hostile approach. Lisa monitored the tactical situation. Captain, the local Vorthok ships are outnumbered, but they are not backing down. They seem willing to fight rather than release the prisoners. Tony crawled out from under his control panel. Captain, the command device just lost 20% of its broadcast power. Some of the ships in our fleet are starting to question orders. Jake could see the situation falling apart in real time. Several ships in his fleet were no longer responding to commands with the same instant obedience. Some of the Vorthok commanders were clearly beginning to resist the neural conditioning. AMI reported that High Command Vorthon was now actively broadcasting counter-signals, trying to break whatever hold the mysterious commander had over the fleet. Captain, we are receiving priority override attempts from multiple Vorthok command centers. The battle at Rigel 7 began, as ship leader Zekthera reluctantly followed Jake's orders to disable the local fleet, but instead of a quick victory, the fight turned into a chaotic engagement, with Vorthok ships firing on each other. Jake watched in horror as his plan completely unraveled. The command device was failing faster than Tony had predicted, and individual ships were beginning to break free from the override signal. Lisa reported that several ships had already stopped following orders. Captain, at least 12 vessels are no longer responding to your commands. They seem to be reverting to their original mission. parameters. Tony was working frantically to keep the command device operational. Captain, I can reroute power from life support, but that will only buy us maybe another hour. The system is burning out too fast. Sudmi suddenly looked up from her communications station. Captain, I am detecting a massive faster-than-light signature. High Command, Vorthon is sending reinforcements. This system is going to be flooded with Vorthok warships. Jake realized that his attempt to save the human prisoners had triggered a much larger crisis. The confusion he had created was drawing attention from the highest levels of Vorthok command, and soon this system would be swarming with enemy ships on the main screen. The battle continued, but Jake could see that ship leader, Zekthara, was no longer fully committed to following his orders. Her attacks on the local Vorthok ships were becoming increasingly half-hearted. Sent checked her navigation systems. Captain, I can plot an escape course, but we would have to abandon the human prisoners. The local Vorthok ships still have 2,000 people in their cargo holds. Jake faced the horrible choice between saving his crew and trying to rescue the prisoners. The command device was failing and enemy reinforcements were coming, but those 2,000 humans would die if he ran away. Tony reported that the device had just lost another 15% of its power. Captain, most of our fleet is now only partially under our control. Some ships are starting to remember who their real enemies are. Army detected new communications from ship leader Zekthara. Captain, she is requesting private communication with you. I think she may have figured out what is really happening. Jake opened the channel. This is Fleet Commander Morrison. What is your status report? Ship leader. Fleet Commander, I have been monitoring the command override signal. That has been controlling my fleet for the past 2 days. The signal is not originating from Vorthok technology. Jake felt his heart stop as he realized that their deception had been discovered. The most powerful alien commander in the fleet now knew that humans had been giving her orders. Ship leader Zekthara continued her transmission. Fleet Commander Morrison, if that is indeed your real name, I know you are human. Your command patterns and tactical decisions do not match any Vorthok strategic doctrine. Tony looked up from his failing equipment. Captain, the device just went critical. We have maybe 10 minutes before complete system shutdown. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew who had followed him into this impossible situation. They had saved some human lives, but now they were trapped among 50 alien warships, whose commanders were starting to remember that humans were supposed to be their enemies. Emmy reported that the reinforcements from High Command were only minutes away. Captain, we are about to be surrounded by over 100 Vorthok warships. Jake opened the communication channel one last time. Ship leader Zekthara, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Defiant. We never intended to deceive your fleet. We were trying to save human lives. The response came immediately. Captain Morrison, prepared to be boarded. My warriors will escort you to the Dominion Spear where you will explain how you managed to control a Vorthok fleet. Jake looked at the main screen where alien ships surrounded them on all sides. The ruse was over, and now they would face the consequences of their desperate deception. Jake waited for the Vorthok boarding party to storm his ship, but instead, something unexpected happened. The ancient command device finally burned out completely, but the alien fleet remained motionless around the Defiant. Monitored the communications channels. Captain Ship Leader Zekthara is not ordering an attack. She seems to be thinking about something. Tony crawled out from his engineering station and confirmed that the command device was completely dead. Captain, we have no control over the Vorthok fleet anymore, but they are not shooting at us either. Lisa kept the ship ready for emergency maneuvers, but reported that none of the alien vessels were taking aggressive positions. Captain, they are just waiting. I do not understand what is happening. The communication system activated and ship leader Zekthara spoke directly to Jake. Captain Morrison, I have spent the past 3 days following orders from what I believed was a superior Vorthok commander, but your actions have shown me something I did not expect from humans. Jake opened the channel. What do you mean, ship leader? Instead of escaping when you had the chance, you chose to stay and protect other human colonies. Your species could have fled to safety, but you risked Everything to save people you had never met. This contradicts everything we have been taught about human nature. Amy was monitoring other communications from the Vorthok fleet. Captain, many of the ship commanders are discussing what happened over the past few days. Some of them seem confused about whether humans are really their enemy. Stone reported that sensors were detecting the massive reinforcement fleet approaching the system. Captain High Command Vorthon is bringing over 200 warships. They will arrive in less than 1 hour. Jake realized that even if ship leader Zekthera was having second thoughts about the war, the arriving reinforcements would not hesitate to destroy the Defiant, but maybe there was still a chance to accomplish something meaningful. Ship leader Zekthera, I need to ask you something. Are you willing to help me broadcast a message to both human and Vorthok forces? There was a long pause before the alien commander responded. Captain Morrison, what kind of message? Jake looked around his bridge at Lisa, Amy and Tony, who had followed him through 3 days of impossible decisions. A message about what really happened here. A human ship accidentally took control of your fleet because we were trying to run away, but instead of using that power for conquest, we used it to protect colonies and free prisoners. Amy was working with the communication systems. Captain, I can broadcast on all frequencies if ship leader Zekthera allows us to use her transmission arrays. Lisa checked the tactical display. Captain, the reinforcement fleet is getting closer, and I am also detecting human ships approaching from the other direction. Admiral Hughes is bringing the Earth Defense Force. Jake realized that they were about to witness the largest military confrontation between humans and Vorthok in over a century. Unless something changed quickly, this system would become a massive battlefield ship. Leader Zekthora opened the communication channel again. Captain Morrison, I will allow you to broadcast your message, but I cannot guarantee that High Command Vorthon will listen to human words. Jake activated the general communication system, broadcasting to all ships, human and Vorthok, that were approaching the system. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human reconnaissance ship Defiant. I want to tell you what happened here over the past 3 days. He explained how a panicked mistake had given him control of a Vorthok fleet, and how instead of using that power to attack, he had chosen to protect human colonies and free prisoners. Jake described how ship leader Zekthara had followed orders even when those orders contradicted her original mission. And Amy monitored the responses as Jake's message spread across both human and Vorthok communication networks. Captain, individual ship commanders on both sides are responding. Some of them are declaring ceased fire. Tony was amazed at what he was seeing on his sensors. Captain, ships from both fleets are powering down their weapons. Several Vorthok commanders are refusing orders to attack. Lisa watched the main screen as the huge reinforcement fleets approached each other. Captain, this could still turn into a massive battle, but some ships are breaking formation on both sides. Jake continued his broadcast, explaining that the war between humans and Vorthok was based on misunderstandings about each other. Ship leader Zekthera had seen that humans were willing to sacrifice themselves to protect others, while Jake had learned that Vorthok could question orders when those orders seemed wrong. Amy reported that the message was spreading rapidly through both communication networks. Captain, news services are picking up the broadcast and transmitting it across human space. Vorthok networks are also carrying the story. High Command Vorthon arrived with over 200 warships, but instead of immediately attacking, they demanded explanations from ship leader Zekthara about the events of the past 3 days. Admiral Hughes brought 50 human warships, but he also held his position and requested communication with Jake to understand what had happened. Jake found himself in the middle of the first direct negotiations between human and Vorthok commanders. In over a century, both sides wanted to understand how a small reconnaissance ship had accidentally created a cease-fire. Ship leader Zekthera surprised everyone by supporting Jake's account of events. She told High Command Vorth on that humans had shown mercy when they could have used superior position for revenge. Amy monitored the growing communications between individual ship commanders from both fleets. Captain, many of them are talking directly to each other. Some are sharing tactical information and discussing the possibility of permanent cease fire. Tony was monitoring all the broadcasts. Captain, this story is spreading across dozens of star systems. Both human and Vorthok populations are hearing about what happened. Here Jake realized that his panicked grab for an escape, but Nat accomplished something much more important than saving a few colonies. The accidental command had created doubt about the war itself among commanders. On both sides, Lisa reported that more ships were arriving in the system, but instead of reinforcing either side, they were coming to witness the first peace negotiations in over a century. The communication system activated, and High Command spoke directly to Jake. Human Captain Morrison, your actions have created confusion in our military hierarchy. Some of our commanders are questioning the necessity of this war. Admiral Hughes also contacted Jake directly. Captain Morrison, Earth Defense Command wants a full report on how you managed to control an enemy fleet. But more importantly, we want to understand if this ceasefire can become permanent. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew, who had helped him turn a desperate escape attempt into the beginning of peace negotiations. The Defiant was still a small reconnaissance ship surrounded by hundreds of warships, but now those ships were talking instead of fighting. Ship leader Zek Thora transmitted her final message to the human ship. Captain Morrison, your species does not flee from responsibility, even when fleeing was your original intention. Perhaps there is wisdom in your chaos. After Olemi reported that ceasefire declarations were spreading across both human and Vorthok territories. Captain, what started as an accident is becoming the foundation for real peace negotiations. Jake watched the main screen where human and Vorthok ships were maintaining careful distances but no longer targeting each other for destruction. The war was not over, but his panicked mistake had opened a door that neither species had expected to find. Tony smiled as he looked at his engineering displays. Captain, that old alien device saved more lives by burning out than it ever could have by working perfectly. Jake knew that the Defiant would return to Earth as heroes, but the real victory was not in commanding an enemy fleet. The victory was in showing both sides that their enemies could be more than they had believed possible.